Humanity has always searched for meaning. From the moment we could look up at the stars and wonder why we're here, we've tried to make sense of our place in the universe. Early humans didn't have science, telescopes, or the language to explain lightning, disease, or death. So they created stories that gave shape to mystery, comfort to fear, and order to chaos. That's where religion began, not as evil, but as an early attempt to understand existence. But what once helped us survive now holds us back. The same stories that gave our ancestors comfort are the ones preventing us from growing up as a species. Humanity is still bound by ancient beliefs that were formed when people thought the earth was flat, when illness meant punishment, and when women were seen as property. We've built rockets, split the atom, and mapped the genome. Yet we still kneel before invisible gods as if progress never happened. Overcoming religion doesn't mean losing morality or culture. It means outgrowing a phase of development, the same way a child eventually learns that the monster under the bed was never real. Religion once filled a gap in human understanding. Now it fills a void in courage, the courage to face reality without illusions. Across the world, religion still dictates what people can say, whom they can love, and even what facts they're allowed to believe. In some places, it shapes laws more than reason does. Millions live under systems that punish doubt, suppress knowledge, and glorify obedience. It isn't just a personal belief. It's a network of control that reaches into every part of human life. And the cost is enormous. Religious institutions have learned how to adapt to survive, even as their ideas grow outdated. They build charities and hospitals, but they also spread guilt and superstition. They claim to offer hope, but often trade it for submission. People are taught not to question, not to think too deeply, and not to ask why. Because faith demands surrender of the very thing that makes us human, our curiosity. Some will say religion brings comfort and community, and it can. But so can art, music, science, and friendship, without needing to suspend reason or fear eternal punishment. The beauty of human connection doesn't require belief in divine oversight. It requires empathy, honesty, and trust, qualities that belong to us, not to God's. When we speak about overcoming religion, we're not talking about erasing heritage or banning belief. We're talking about freeing the human mind from dependence on authority that claims absolute truth. Religion has long positioned itself as the source of morality, meaning, and identity. But morality comes from empathy, meaning comes from experience, and identity comes from awareness. None of these require superstition. Throughout history, religion has stood in the way of progress more often than it's helped. It has fought against astronomy, biology, medicine, and even basic human rights. It told us the earth was the center of everything. It told us suffering was holy. It told us not to ask too many questions. Each time humanity advanced, it did so by ignoring those warnings. But still, religion persists. Not because its claims are true, but because it's designed to be emotionally irresistible. It offers certainty when life feels uncertain, purpose when existence feels random, and comfort when facing death. That's its genius and its danger. People cling to it not because of evidence, but because it meets psychological needs that logic alone struggles to soothe. Religion endures not as truth, but as therapy for the fear of meaninglessness. The challenge for humanity is to find a better kind of courage, one that doesn't depend on myths to feel safe. Overcoming religion means learning to accept reality, even when it's harsh. It means finding peace not through promises of heaven, but through understanding the universe as it really is, vast, indifferent, but also beautiful in its honesty. Our next step as a species isn't to pray harder, but to think clearer. The same imagination that once created gods can now create solutions. The same longing for transcendence can become the drive to explore, to learn, to build. We no longer need faith to feel wonder. The cosmos itself is wondrous enough. Part 2 will explore why religion still survives despite centuries of evidence against its claims, how it evolved psychologically and socially to protect itself from extinction. Religion's survival isn't an accident. It's a masterpiece of psychological engineering, built to endure even when its claims collapse under scrutiny. It thrives not on truth, but on emotional design. appealing to instincts older than civilization itself. The reason billions still believe isn't because the evidence is convincing, but because the human mind is wired to find comfort in certainty and belonging. From childhood, many people are told that questioning faith is dangerous. When you're raised to believe something is sacred, the mind builds defenses around it. You're taught that doubt is sin, that skepticism is rebellion, and that fear of punishment is virtue. This conditioning happens so early that it becomes invisible. It shapes identity before critical thinking even develops. That's how religion sustains itself, by planting roots in a child's emotional world long before reason can grow. Sociologically, religion functions like a cultural immune system. It protects itself from outside ideas by labeling them as threats. Don't listen to the unbelievers. Doubt is temptation. Faith must be tested. Each warning acts as a firewall against change. It's a brilliant adaptation. Every challenge becomes proof of faith's strength. Every contradiction becomes a trial from which belief must emerge purer. No other institution is as skilled at turning refutation into reinforcement. Psychologically, religion capitalizes on what's called cognitive dissonance. When people invest deeply in a belief, especially one tied to their identity or community, they experience discomfort when presented with conflicting evidence. Instead of accepting that discomfort, they rationalize it away. Science doesn't understand everything. God works in mysterious ways. You have to feel the truth in your heart. These phrases are not arguments. They are shields, tools for preserving faith against reality. Then there's the social layer. Religion offers community, structure, and identity. For many, leaving it means losing family, friends, and social belonging. It's not just walking away from ideas, it's walking away from people you love. That's why even intelligent, well-informed individuals can stay in faith communities that contradict everything they know about the world. It's safer to belong in illusion than to stand alone in truth. Overcoming religion, therefore, isn't just an intellectual act. It's an emotional revolution. It requires rebuilding identity from the ground up, facing existential uncertainty, and learning to create meaning without divine scripts. Many never attempt it, not because they lack intelligence, but because it's painful. Religion makes life simpler by outsourcing the hardest questions to authority. Take that away, and you're left with the vast, open field of the unknown. And yet, that field is where real freedom begins. Another reason religion endures is its skill at emotional manipulation. It exploits two fundamental fears: death and insignificance. No matter how rational we are, death feels personal. The idea that consciousness simply ends, that there's no continuation, no reunion, no reward, triggers instinctive dread. Religion steps in and soothes it. You'll live forever. You'll see them again. There's meaning behind your suffering. It replaces uncertainty with narrative. The comfort is seductive, but it's built on fiction. The second fear is insignificance. We want to feel that our lives matter, that we're part of a plan. Religion offers the ultimate validation. The universe itself supposedly cares about you. Every thought, every action, every prayer, noticed by an infinite being. This is an irresistible story for the ego. It transforms random existence into cosmic importance. Yet that very promise keeps us dependent, like children waiting for approval from a heavenly parent. If religion were simply a private comfort, it might not matter. But the problem is that it doesn't stay private. It extends its influence into education, politics, and law. It dictates what children learn about origins. It shapes how societies treat women, minorities, and even science. Because faith claims moral authority, it demands public power. And once it has that power, it resists every attempt to limit it. Look at how religious institutions adapt to maintain influence. When science disproved literal creation, they reinterpreted scripture metaphorically. When morality evolved, they reframed cruelty as love misunderstood. Religion doesn't disappear, it shapeshifts. It learns to survive by bending language, blurring boundaries, and convincing people that the problem isn't faith itself, but how others interpret it. It's a moving target, impossible to pin down because it reinvents itself whenever cornered. Still, the evidence against its claims is overwhelming. No divine intervention has ever been proven. No miracle has stood up to independent verification. The moral codes that religions claim as divine are easily traced to human culture, politics, and psychology. And yet, for billions, that doesn't matter. Because faith was never about evidence. It was about belonging, hope, and control. Understanding that is crucial if humanity ever hopes to move beyond it. Overcoming religion means recognizing that comfort is not the same as truth. It means understanding that facing reality, even when it's uncomfortable, is a higher act of courage than submitting to fantasy. Humanity has reached a stage where our technology, knowledge, and interconnectivity have outgrown the myths that once held us together. We can now see, with unprecedented clarity, that the gods we created were reflections of ourselves, our fears, desires, and ignorance. It's time we took responsibility for them, rather than worshiping them. In the next part, we'll look at how religion continues to shape modern society, not through belief alone, but through institutions, politics, and economics that depend on keeping people obedient and uncertain. Even in a world shaped by science and technology, religion remains deeply woven into the structure of power. It's not just belief that keeps it alive, it's infrastructure, money, and influence. Temples, churches, mosques, and religious organizations aren't just centers of worship. They're networks of authority, often operating like corporations or political machines. They own land, control media, influence elections, and shape education systems. The survival of religion today isn't based on faith alone. It's supported by an economy of belief. Every major religion has learned how to convert devotion into revenue. Donations, tithes, pilgrimages, publishing, broadcasting, all of it adds up to billions each year. Many religious groups enjoy tax exemptions, allowing them to accumulate wealth, while contributing little to the social systems that sustain them. The result is a paradox. Institutions that preach humility while amassing vast fortunes. Their financial power gives them political leverage, and that leverage protects their interests. Religion at this point is less about spirituality and more about maintaining structures that profit from faith. Politicians understand this dynamic perfectly. In many countries, religion acts as a shortcut to legitimacy. Aligning with faith leaders guarantees trust from large voting blocs. Policies that should be decided by reason are shaped instead by doctrines written thousands of years ago. From abortion to education, from climate policy to LGBTQ rights, religious lobbying distorts rational governance. It replaces the question, what helps people most, with what would our scripture allow? This entanglement of belief and power isn't new. Theocracies are as old as civilization itself. But even in modern democracies, the influence persists in softer, subtler forms. Religious privilege disguised as tradition. Political leaders still swear oaths on holy books. Public schools still lead prayers. Laws still reflect religious morality, even in supposedly secular nations. Religion has become so normalized that most people don't recognize its fingerprints on institutions meant to serve everyone, believers or not. What's more troubling is how religion shapes education. Instead of encouraging curiosity, it often limits it. In some schools, evolution is downplayed or replaced with creation myths. In others, critical thinking about faith is discouraged entirely. The result is generations of people trained to memorize beliefs, rather than analyze evidence. Education should liberate minds, not confine them to ancient frameworks. Yet many religious systems depend on control over learning, because knowledge is the one thing that consistently weakens faith. In societies where religion still dominates politics, progress stalls. Science becomes suspect, social reform becomes dangerous, and conformity is rewarded over innovation. Consider how long it took to recognize women as equal, or to accept that same-sex relationships are natural variations of human behavior. These weren't new discoveries. They were moral awakenings delayed by religious dogma. Every generation that clings to sacred authority over rational ethics repeats the same mistake, confusing obedience with virtue. Even in countries where secularism is law, religious influence hides in subtler ways: moral pressure, cultural habits, and inherited guilt. People who no longer believe often still feel fear, shame, or anxiety, rooted in the religious conditioning of childhood. It's as if the architecture of faith remains in the mind, long after the God has been removed. Overcoming religion isn't just about changing institutions. It's about freeing the human psyche from invisible chains. One of the most striking examples of this psychological residue is moral dependency. Many people are taught that morality comes from God, that without religion, humans would have no reason to be good. This idea is not only false, it's deeply insulting to human nature. We cooperate, empathize, and protect one another not because we fear divine punishment, but because we are social creatures who survive through empathy. Morality existed long before commandments. Even animals show compassion and fairness within their groups. The idea that goodness needs divine supervision is one of religion's most persistent and damaging myths. Religions also exploit guilt and fear as tools of control. Sin, hell, karma, all are psychological weapons that turn natural human impulses into reasons for shame. This mechanism keeps people obedient. If you're told that thinking critically or feeling desire makes you wicked, you'll police yourself. You'll become your own warden. It's an ingenious system, one that requires no guards because the believer becomes both prisoner and jailer. But what would happen if humanity learned to live without this machinery of guilt and control? What if morality were grounded not in divine command, but in understanding what actually helps people thrive? We already have the evidence. Countries with the highest levels of secularism tend to have lower crime rates, higher education levels, and better equality. When people stop fearing gods, they start taking responsibility for one another. They stop outsourcing compassion to invisible forces and begin practicing it consciously. Religion thrives on dependency. It tells people they are broken, sinful, or incomplete, and then sells the cure. It convinces them that life's meaning and morality can only come from outside themselves. But when people realize they are capable of finding purpose and goodness on their own, the system collapses. That's why religion resists change so fiercely. Its power depends on insecurity. Confident, educated, self-aware humans are bad for business. Overcoming religion, then, isn't about destroying faith communities or mocking belief. It's about dismantling the machinery that keeps humanity intellectually and emotionally dependent. It's about building a culture that values evidence, empathy, and courage more than obedience. The moment people stop needing permission to think, religion loses its foundation. In the next part, we'll look at the deeper psychological roots of belief, how human cognition, fear, and social instincts create fertile ground for religion to grow, and why understanding those roots is key to transcending them. To understand why religion endures, even when reason exposes its flaws, we have to look deeper, not at churches or scriptures, but at the human mind itself. Religion didn't invent belief. Belief invented religion. Our brains evolved to detect patterns, seek agency, and tell stories. These traits helped our ancestors survive, but they also made us vulnerable to superstition. The world of early humans was full of danger and uncertainty. A rustle in the grass could be the wind, or a predator. Those who assumed agency, who thought something is there, were more likely to survive. Over time, the brain became biased toward seeing intention everywhere. Thunder wasn't just weather. It was a being's anger. The sun didn't rise, it was pulled by a god. This instinct, called hyperactive agency detection, made belief in invisible forces natural, even inevitable. Religion is that instinct formalized, organized, and given names. The next ingredient is our craving for patterns. The human brain hates randomness. When something happens, we want to know why. We see faces in clouds, luck in numbers, and messages in coincidence. Religion gives shape to chaos. It promises that everything, even suffering, has a reason. This makes it emotionally irresistible. If a loved one dies, it's not meaningless. It's part of God's plan. That idea may be false, but it soothes the part of us that can't bear uncertainty. Then comes storytelling, perhaps humanity's oldest technology. Our species survives on narrative. We make sense of life by turning events into stories with beginnings, struggles, and resolutions. Religion packages existence into one grand story: creation, fall, redemption, afterlife, complete with heroes, villains, and cosmic stakes. It's mythic structure at its finest. That's why holy books are filled with tales, not essays. Facts inform. Stories persuade. These traits, agency detection, pattern seeking, and narrative craving, combine to make the perfect soil for religion. Add fear of death and you get permanence. When consciousness evolved enough to understand mortality, terror followed. We realized we are finite. Religion turned that terror into hope. There's more after this. You won't really die. You'll see them again. It's an evolutionary anesthetic for existential pain. But here's where it becomes dangerous. What began as adaptive instincts evolved into mechanisms of control. Once humans learned that belief could unite tribes and justify authority, religion became a tool, not just a comfort. Leaders claimed divine backing, moral codes became laws, and fear of gods kept populations obedient. Religion turned psychological reflexes into systems of hierarchy. The same instinct that once helped us survive now sustains power over us. Another powerful force behind belief is tribalism. Our ancestors lived in small groups, and loyalty meant survival. Religion amplifies that instinct by dividing the world into us and them, believers and infidels. Saved and damned, chosen and forgotten. This division strengthens internal bonds but breeds external conflict. Wars fought in the name of gods aren't accidents. They're extensions of an ancient survival instinct, hijacked and weaponized by ideology. You can see it even in modern times. People who share the same faith often feel instant trust, even without knowing each other. The shared illusion becomes social glue. It creates belonging, which feels safe. But belonging based on shared delusion is fragile. It demands constant defense. That's why religious identity so easily turns into hostility. Questioning belief isn't just disagreement. It's betrayal. And betrayal in a tribe must be punished. That's why blasphemy remains a crime in parts of the world. It's not about protecting truth. It's about protecting the tribe. Understanding these psychological roots changes how we view religion. It stops looking like divine truth and starts looking like a side effect of evolution. A collection of useful illusions that once served a purpose but no longer fit our world. It explains why faith feels so natural, even when it's irrational. The believer isn't stupid or lazy. They're human. Their brain is doing what human brains evolved to do: seek patterns, tell stories, and find meaning. So, if religion is rooted in these natural instincts, can humanity truly overcome it? The answer lies not in suppressing belief, but in transforming it, in learning to channel the same needs into more constructive directions. The need for belonging can become humanism. The need for purpose can become creativity. The need for awe can become science. The difference is that these alternatives don't require submission to authority. They encourage exploration rather than obedience. The human mind will always need meaning. That part can't be erased. But meaning doesn't have to come from myths. It can come from understanding how small yet extraordinary our place in the cosmos is. It can come from realizing that our existence, though temporary, is part of something vast and interconnected. We don't need eternal life to make life precious. Its very fragility gives it value. This is why overcoming religion isn't an attack on belief. It's an upgrade to consciousness. It's humanity's chance to evolve beyond superstition, while preserving what's beautiful about wonder, hope, and connection. The goal isn't to destroy the instinct for meaning, but to liberate it from fear. Still, there's one question that remains. If religion is so deeply ingrained, why do so many people still feel lost without it? If we remove faith, what fills the void? That's the emotional challenge humanity must face next. How to replace the psychological comfort of religion with something equally fulfilling, but real. In the next part, we'll explore what comes after religion, how humans can find purpose, morality, and community without relying on the divine, and why secular meaning may be our greatest strength. When people first step away from religion, there's often a moment of emptiness. For years, Maybe for an entire lifetime their sense of identity, morality, and meaning was wrapped in faith. Leaving it can feel like erasing the map of the world. But what's remarkable is that, once the shock fades, most discover that the map was never needed. The world itself is far richer, without the borders drawn by belief, one of the first myths to fall apart after religion is the idea that meaning must come from a higher power. The assumption is that if life isn't part of some divine plan, then it's pointless. But this thinking reverses reality. If everything were preordained by a god, our choices wouldn't matter. True meaning arises not from destiny, but from freedom. From the fact that life isn't written in advance. Every decision, every connection, every act of kindness becomes meaningful precisely because it's ours to create. Human purpose doesn't need cosmic validation, a mother's love for her child, an artist's devotion to their work, a scientist's pursuit of truth. None of these need divine approval to be profound. They are expressions of consciousness, of beings aware enough to care. We are meaning-making creatures. It's what our minds do best. When people realize this, they stop waiting for instructions from heaven and start building value from the ground up. The moral landscape works the same way. Religion often claims to be the source of morality, but history tells another story. Societies long before modern faiths had systems of fairness, cooperation, and justice. Morality isn't divine. It's social. We evolved to empathize because empathy helped us survive. Groups that cared for their members thrived better than those that didn't. Even animals display forms of moral behavior. Fairness among primates, cooperation among dolphins, compassion among elephants. Morality isn't proof of gods. It's evidence of evolution. What religion did was formalize moral instincts into commandments, then claim ownership of them. But you don't need a divine threat to know that kindness is good or cruelty is wrong. You feel it. It's built into us through millions of years of shared experience. In fact, some of the most moral societies today are also the least religious. Nations with high levels of secularism consistently show lower rates of violence, corruption, and inequality. When people act ethically because they care about each other, not because they fear punishment, morality becomes genuine. Another thing people often miss after leaving religion is community, that sense of belonging, of shared rituals and common purpose. But community isn't exclusive to faith. It's human. Secular societies build it through education, cooperation, and shared goals. From book clubs to volunteer groups to scientific communities, there are countless ways to connect without doctrine. The key difference is that secular community thrives on choice, not conformity. You're free to belong because you want to, not because you fear exclusion or damnation. One of humanity's great tasks now is to create systems that replace what religion once provided: connection, moral guidance, and purpose, without relying on illusion. Education plays a central role here. Critical thinking should be taught as a tool for self-liberation, not just academic success. Empathy should be cultivated as deeply as logic. The next generation should learn not only how to question, but also how to care. When those two qualities combine, intelligence and compassion, humanity becomes capable of everything religion promised but never delivered. Some worry that a world without religion would be cold or nihilistic, that removing belief would strip life of meaning. But that's a misunderstanding. Secularism doesn't erase wonder, it expands it. Religion gives you a single story about creation. Science gives you the entire cosmos. Religion tells you what to think. Philosophy teaches you how to think. Religion gives you rules. Reason gives you understanding. The universe is not less amazing because it's natural. It's more so, because every atom of it follows patterns we can learn and explore. The more we understand, the deeper our awe becomes. Replacing faith with knowledge doesn't mean eliminating mystery. There will always be questions beyond our reach. But mystery doesn't have to be filled with gods. It can simply be appreciated as mystery, a reminder of how much there is still to learn. Curiosity is a better form of worship than prayer. It asks instead of repeats. It builds instead of kneels. There's also a deeper, quieter kind of meaning that comes from accepting our mortality. Religion offers eternal life to ease the fear of death. but it also steals something in return: the urgency of living. When you believe this life is just a test or a temporary stop, you never fully inhabit it. When you realize it's all you have, every moment becomes sacred in a different way. The sunset isn't a message from heaven. It's light traveling across millions of miles to reach your eyes before your brief existence ends. That's miraculous enough. Overcoming religion allows humanity to see existence without filters. It replaces divine purpose with human responsibility. There's no God to fix our mistakes, no heaven to escape to, no hell to scare us straight. There's just us, fragile, imperfect, capable of astonishing compassion and cruelty. Whether our species survives or destroys itself will depend entirely on what we choose to do with our brief time here. That realization, while sobering, is also empowering. It means the future is not written. It's waiting for us to write it. This is why humanity must outgrow religion. Not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. The challenges ahead require clear thinking and global cooperation. Climate change, inequality, artificial intelligence, space exploration. None of these problems can be solved through prayer or dogma. They demand knowledge, empathy, and courage. They demand adults, not believers. In the next part, we'll explore how religion continues to resist progress, not through open warfare with science, but through subtle cultural influence, misinformation, and the preservation of ignorance disguised as faith. Even after learning how religions manipulate, deceive, and control, one might wonder, why do people still believe? Why do intelligent, educated individuals continue to defend ancient myths and moral contradictions with such passion? The answer lies deep within human psychology. Religion does not survive because it is true. It survives because it fulfills powerful emotional needs. Humans crave meaning. We fear death. We struggle with uncertainty. Religion provides simple answers to all three. It tells us that life has a purpose, death is not the end, and moral chaos is replaced with divine order. That comfort is powerful. It silences existential anxiety, the most fundamental fear of all. It's not the truth that people seek, it's security. Religion promises that the universe is not random or indifferent. It gives people a role in a cosmic story, even if the story is false. Cognitive biases also play a role. Confirmation bias makes believers interpret every coincidence as divine intervention. If a prayer is answered, it's proof. If it's not, it's God's plan. Either way, the belief system protects itself. Then comes group identity. Religion bonds people together through rituals, language, and moral rules. To question it means risking exile, emotional or social. No one wants to lose family, friends, or belonging. Faith becomes less about God and more about community survival. There's also the sunk cost effect. The more time and emotion someone invests in belief, the harder it becomes to let go. Imagine realizing that the faith you built your entire life around, the one that defined your marriage, morals, and purpose, was never real. That's a devastating thought. Many people would rather live a comforting lie than face that pain. This is why logic rarely changes believers' minds. It's not about facts, it's about identity. The brain protects belief like it protects the body from harm. When confronted with evidence that threatens faith, the believer's mind doesn't open, it defends. And yet, not everyone stays asleep. Throughout history, brave individuals have broken free from the spell. They asked questions others feared to ask. They followed evidence over emotion, truth over tradition. These are the skeptics, the thinkers, the heretics. People who dared to face reality as it is, not as they wished it to be. The journey out of faith is not about rebellion. It's about awakening. It's the moment one realizes that morality, purpose, and love do not need divine permission. That being good does not require heaven's approval. That the universe is awe-inspiring enough without superstition. But even then, religion finds new ways to adapt, reinventing itself as spirituality, prosperity gospel, or positive energy. The names change, but the manipulation stays the same, exploiting human vulnerability for power and profit. The question then is not why people believe, but when they'll stop needing to. Because the moment humanity outgrows its dependence on divine illusions is the moment it begins to truly evolve. ethically, intellectually, and emotionally. Religion teaches obedience. Truth demands courage, and courage, not faith, is what frees the human mind. We've journeyed through the origins of faith, the machinery of manipulation, and the psychology that keeps people chained to illusion. Now comes the question that matters most. What happens next? What does a world beyond religion look like? First, let's be clear. A post-religious world doesn't mean a world without morality, community, or awe. It means a world where these things are no longer monopolized by organized belief systems. Morality existed before religion, and it thrives without it. Compassion, empathy, honesty, fairness. These are not divine gifts. They are human instincts. Evolution shaped them because cooperation helps species survive. No ancient book needed to teach us that suffering is wrong. Our shared humanity already knows it. In a future free from dogma, morality would evolve from reason, not revelation. From evidence, not commandments. It would ask, what helps humanity thrive? Instead of what pleases God? Science would become not an enemy of spirituality, but its natural continuation, a way of exploring wonder through understanding. The stars, the oceans, the intricate dance of DNA. These are more miraculous than any ancient myth. When you realize that every atom in your body was once part of a star, you don't need a holy book to feel sacred. Education, not indoctrination, would guide the next generation. Instead of teaching children what to think, we'd teach them how to think, how to question, reason, and seek truth on their own. And yes, there would still be mystery. There will always be things we don't yet know. But the difference is, we would no longer fill those gaps with superstition. We'd fill them with curiosity. The unknown would no longer be a threat. It would be an invitation. But make no mistake, religion won't disappear easily. It will fight to survive, as it always has. Will rebrand, reshape, and reinvent itself. Because belief isn't just a doctrine. It's a business, a power structure, a cultural force. It adapts like a virus to every new era. Yet history shows that every empire built on illusion eventually cracks. The church lost its monopoly on knowledge. The gods of old fell to reason. Each generation questions more, doubts more, and demands evidence over faith. The internet, education, and open conversation are accelerating that shift. Faster than ever before. What we are witnessing is not the death of faith, but the birth of intellectual maturity, the awakening. It isn't about mocking religion or tearing down every believer. It's about breaking the silence that has protected lies for centuries. It's about courage. The courage to face reality without supernatural comfort, to find purpose without promises of paradise, and most importantly, it's about responsibility. Because once you stop believing that a higher power controls everything, you realize something profound. We are responsible for ourselves. The future of humanity, its justice, its compassion, its survival, depends not on divine intervention, but on human action. The universe doesn't care whether we exist, but we can. We can care. We can build meaning from within. That is the ultimate rebellion, and the ultimate freedom. So as the light of reason continues to rise, ask yourself this: would you rather kneel before myths, or stand upright in truth? Because truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is the only thing sacred enough to set us free.